The purpose of these lessons is to show you the logic behind the most basic Chinese characters, beginning with the simplest pictograms, and later combining these elements to create more complex characters. If you haven't watched Lesson 1, I would recommend that you do so. Keep in mind that these are not conversation lessons. I'm merely arranging Chinese characters into groups with a common component, so that they are easy to memorize in case you are attempting to learn this language. And by knowing the origin of a character, it's often very helpful in understanding its various connotations today. Today's lesson is 4 characters related to the sun, which was briefly touched on in Lesson 3. The pictogram for the sun began as a circle and dot inscribed on clay or stone tablets with a stylus. Later, after the writing brush was introduced around 200 BC, it was drawn as a square, with a horizontal line indicating a solid center. This character is pronounced fourth tone, with a retroflex R. And means what we would expect: the sun, day, and time. Some phrases include birthday, the sun paired with the character for produce or bear a child. 生日, 生日. Sunrise, 日出, 日出, literally when the sun comes out. And land of the rising sun, Japan, 日本, 日本, more directly translated as sun origin. And a Japanese, nationality not language, is 日本人, 日本人. Japan was given its name by the Chinese around the year 700 AD, because Japan is located east of China, where the sun appears to rise. The pronunciation Japan was likely brought to the West by Dutch traders from a southern Chinese dialect, because 日本 is pronounced yakbun in Cantonese, and jitbun in the Minnanese dialect of Fujian and Taiwan, where the Dutch had built a fort. The next ideogram does not belong in the sun family, but we need it to understand another character. This is the drawing of a seed, splitting open and sending a root down into the earth, indicating the end of winter and the beginning of new life in the spring. Originally, it was a simple cross, indicating a root penetrating the earth, but to avoid confusion with the number 10, the hard seed coat was added. This character is pronounced third tone, 甲, 甲, and is used much the same way we write capital A in English to represent a party to a legal contract, for example, Party A, or to mark a grade of A on a test. In general, 甲 indicates first rate or top quality. With this knowledge, we can better grasp the origin of our next character for morning and early. Pronounced third tone, 早, 早. This sprouting seed conveys the idea of the sun emerging above the horizon in the early hours of a new day. The seed coat has been dropped, leaving the cross to represent the descending root. Some useful phrases are in the morning, 早上, 早上. And we'll be leaving very early in the morning. 一大早, 一大早. And the phrase at an early date, or soon, 早日, 早日, as in wishing someone a speedy recovery from illness. Our next ideogram began as a primitive representation of stars surrounding the phonetic sheng, meaning to produce or give birth, which was introduced in lesson 4. The stars evolved to appear as 3 small suns. Above a later version of sheng, and finally were reduced to only 1. This new character is pronounced first tone, xing, xing, and means star or planet. This, of course, is another phonosemantic compound, with sheng serving as a clue to the pronunciation. One problem I mentioned before is that Chinese syllables are limited in number compared to Western languages, leading to the unfortunate result of a large number of homonyms. Reading written characters is easy, but hearing a single character pronounced by itself will often draw a blank expression on the part of a Chinese listener. So, to avoid ambiguity, over 65% of modern spoken Chinese consists of phrases of 2, 3, 4, or more characters. Doubling a character is one method to reduce ambiguity for nouns, and today's character is an example of this. So, xing xing means star in the spoken language. In Beijing dialect, the second syllable is unstressed, xing xing. Here's a further example. 天上的星星. The particle de translates either as the stars of heaven above, or the stars which are in the sky above. Xing also means planet, which, when paired with the character for wood, becomes the name of the largest planet in our solar system, Jupiter. 木星, 木星. In lesson 5, I introduced different forms of hand, 手, and foot, 指, and showed how the shapes can change when appearing within other characters. In today's lesson, we have an example of both, a new character combining the sun with a foot and a hand. This phonosemantic ideogram represents the sun moving forward to express the passage of time. It's pronounced second tone, 十, 十, with a simplified foot, also giving a clue to the sound. Notice how this foot element adds both sound and meaning, proof that most phonetic components are not chosen arbitrarily, but are selected to contribute to the interpretation of a character. Today, it has the general meaning of time, but not the English translation of 3 times, 10 times. That's a different character. We'll talk about the extra hand in a moment, but first, let's give some useful phrases. Momentarily, or for a moment, 一时, 一时, as in, for a moment I couldn't recall his name. As we saw with some other nouns, 天天, 人人, and 足足, this character can also be doubled to emphasize amount or number. So, 时时, 时时 means frequently or often. The hand pictogram that appears in this character has an added dot, indicating the position on the wrist where traditional Chinese doctors feel a patient's pulse to make a diagnosis. It's pronounced 寸, 寸. According to traditional theory, the condition of the body's internal organs can be accurately determined by placing 3 fingers beginning at this point on the wrist and distinguishing 3 levels of depth, strength, and tension of the blood flow beneath. It's an amazing skill to behold. This character, 寸, can stand alone to indicate measurement, about 1 inch. Or it can add the idea of measuring something, as it does in the character for time, 时. And sometimes it simply means a human hand. Keep in mind that Chinese is the oldest written language still in everyday use after more than 3,000 years. Therefore, variation is to be expected when copies are made by scribes over the centuries. So far, we've seen 4 different variations on the hand pictogram. The character for 右, the left side radical for 符 and 拍, the inch hand in 时, and finally the hand that appears in 书, not to mention the original standalone hand, 手. Now let's review an ideogram from lesson 5, 正, a foot going straight to its destination, with the basic meaning of straight, direct, honest, upstanding. Combined with the sun, we have a very important new character, pronounced 4th tone, 是, 是, meaning yes, that's right, affirmative. It literally means straight and correct under the light of day, clearly true. This character has a rare form where zheng is unchanged, and a modern one in which zheng has been slightly modified. This new character, 是, can sometimes be used as a translation for the English be verbs, am, are, is, was, were, will be, has been, etc. Limiting myself to what little vocabulary we've studied so far, we can create a few sentences. 本人是天才. Yours truly is a genius. We can also introduce here a basic pattern for making yes-no questions, useful especially with verbs and adjectives. As I mentioned in earlier videos, Chinese grammar is quite simple, with no tenses or plural forms to worry about, because the context determines everything. Using previous vocabulary, here are 4 easy questions, the last 2 examples having a topic followed by a remark. Notice the changes in tones with negative 不. 是不是? Is that right? 久不久? Will it take a long time? 书大不大? Was it a large book? 人正不正? Does she meet your beauty standards? The character 是 is especially useful in combination with de to add emphasis. In fact, it's called the shi de pattern in Chinese grammar books. For example, 扶手是歪的, the railing is crooked. Or 星星是白的, stars are white. Here is our color chart with today's 7 characters and their correct stroke order. 日 甲 早 星 时 and 是 寸 The following chart shows how these characters would appear in printed form. For those learning simplified characters, the simplified form for 时 is also given. To fix the characters in your memory, copy them onto colored sheets of paper, as suggested in previous videos. Blue, green, pink, yellow, and white, to represent the 4 tones plus the neutral tone. Review the colored sheets regularly. Notice on the green and pink sheets that 2 characters are underlined on each sheet, indicating that they are homonyms, pronounced exactly the same. When memorizing these characters, it helps to create an oddball phrase to link these homonyms together. For example, in today's lesson, 10 and time are underlined, so you could create a weird scenario in your mind's eye. Time the 10, and picture in your imagination a burly number 10 at the starting line of a foot race with someone pounding on the start button of an oversized stopwatch as the 10 speeds off. It may sound stupid, but you are making a creative link between 10 and time. Psychologists know that the human brain recalls bizarre scenarios far more easily than logical ones. It's a very well-known memory trick, and it works. So create your own scenario for even better, longer retention. So, what have we learned in today's lesson? 1. The reason Chinese characters are basically square is due to the invention of the writing brush around 200 BC. Before that, circles, wavy lines, and elongated figures were not unusual. 2. The sun pictogram means the sun itself, day, and time in general. Birthday is 生日. 3. The name given to Japan by the Chinese around 700 AD is 日本, meaning sun origin, due to its location to the east of China. 4. The pronunciation Japan most likely is an approximation of a southern Chinese dialect by Dutch traders. 5. The sprouting seed, 甲, is used for numbering, and is similar to the English use of capital A to show something is first among many, or of top quality. 6. Morning and early are expressed by 早, a seed sprouting, beneath a picture of the sun. 7. In the morning is simply 早上, and very early in the morning is 一大早. 8. Due to confusion caused by the high number of homonyms in Chinese, doubling a character is one way to distinguish nouns. Star, 星星, is an example of this method. 9. Since 星 also means planet, we can learn the name for Jupiter, 木星. 10. We can see that there are at least 4 variations for hand, 手, to be found in the composition of Chinese characters. 11. The character for time, 时, is an ideogram showing the sun moving forward, and the inch hand indicating measurement. Remember that the phonetic element often contributes to the meaning of a character. 12. The expression 一时 means momentarily, and 时时 literally means time and time again. It can express the English meaning of frequently. 13. A slightly modified version of the character from Lesson 5, 正, along with the sun, combined to create the ideogram 是, meaning yes, that's clearly correct, right, and true. 14. 是 is similar to the English verb to be, although it's not generally necessary with adjectives. 15. The sentence pattern X, not X, is used in simple yes-no questions with verbs and adjectives. 16. The use of 是 and 的 together is an emphatic pattern. Sometimes the 是 is omitted. Now you will find a short quiz on single, double, and triple character expressions. Answer using only the characters learned thus far. Thank you for watching and listening.